Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 11 of The Beer Enthusiast. Chris was able to snag us a really, really good one. Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about this, just what beer you were able, or were you able to, who got this? On a Deep got us this. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
on a deep
I'm
sent this to
thinking
us.
I'm
So
thinking you've had this before. That's what I
I
was
have
thinking.
had the pleasure of having this before, but it's been a long time, so it'll be really nice to revisit. And it's a style that you just like don't see all that
Right.
often. So that's what makes it exciting for us. It might be impossible for you to find an interpretation near you, and that's okay. Hopefully, someone's brewing it and you can get your mitts on it. But it's a Grodziskie or a Grosser
Grodziskie is
in
another one. Yeah. There's lots of pronunciations you'll hear.
Yeah, and so the idea is that it's a it's a Polish style of smoked wheat beer essentially,
Yeah.
and Live Oak has the gall to make one year round.
I know.
So if you know anybody near Austin, Texas, you can also get a hold of it because they make
Yeah.
it frequently, like ridiculous people, like
Yeah.
ridiculously awesome people.
That's a good idea. All right, Chris, I'm gonna start this off with I've got a conundrum. Usually we kind of present what glassware we have. So I have a choice because I don't know if like the Live Oak, dimpled mug is the like traditional way to go, or if you go with something kind of like a smaller like format mug that's kind of got that little taller, almost, kind of slimmer shape. So are you more of a uh as long as it's the branded glassware of the brewery, you're pretty good, or is it more about the actual maybe like shape of the glass? Where do you fall in that camp?
I think having the brewery's branded glassware breaks the tie for me.
I'm
Um,
pretty sure. Yeah, it would have to be a very odd, like, because I think for this style, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. This is going to be highly carbonated. It's got wheat. There's plenty of room for for foam in this kind of glass, so I think it's fine. But I'm trying to think of one that might break the tie, that might in the other direction, where it's like I just can't have this in the branded glass.
Yeah, I
It's
think maybe if you had like like an English dimple mug or something from some brewery sticking a Polish style beer in it, maybe wouldn't feel the best. But like,
yeah.
what are you gonna do? It's gonna be all
What
right.
are you
I
gonna
don't
do?
have a live oak glass, so I've got like a green
Oh,
cheek
perfect.
branded. It's kind of a
Yeah.
Stanga, but it reminds me of like a flute, almost like a champagne flute. So I think
Yep.
that's in the spirit of a light bodied, really bubbly uh, beverage. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And what is kind of commonly referred to as you know Polish champagne. I've
Right.
read, so that's one way to do it. But
Look at that.
yeah,
Just do the
cheers.
video
Yeah,
right through the
not
beer.
the perfect. So another thing, make sure to pick the clean glass. Make sure that's a big one. Pick the clean one. So we'll roll with it
Yeah.
though. It's been a while. Well, as you can see, I don't get live oak a lot, so this one doesn't get cleaned a whole lot. So,
Yep.
oh, oh, but still smells great. The foam is there's plenty of retention, so we're good to go. They have everything on their website in terms of recipe. 100% oak smoked wheat malt, as you kind of alluded to there. They use Saz or Jatek hops. They have a decoction mash, which is traditional. The best part about this, 3% ABV. This is like
Yeah.
this is
An all-time crusher.
sessionable, yeah, all time, and a nice firm amount of bitterness for the style, 36 IBUs. And then the interesting one is they say traditional yeasts, plural.
Mm.
So I don't know if they're just
Yeah.
kind of saying that, or if there's a little bit of a you know maybe they're trying to say something, maybe not. We won't read
Yeah.
into
I
it too
don't.
much. I don't really know if there's a tradition of different blends of yeast or things of that nature. So
Yeah. I
but we'll
think
see
that
what.
that from what I've read, it. First of all, it was a nearly extinct style, basically.
Right.
So the interpretations can be loose
Yeah,
interpretations,
that's right.
but they, maybe it's maybe you can use top or bottom fermenting yeast. I think we'll taste it and figure out exactly where our head's at in terms of the yeast character. But I think that the idea that you could use either or a blend is because it's not really meant to be a yeasty beer.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we'll taste it and see. But that's my assumption.
Right. All right, cool. Well, let's dig in. So, like you said, we've got just this like ridiculously crystal clear. Read the newspaper or whatever. If you're still reading, you know what you can read through this. Read Final Gravity issue 2. So,
Yeah,
got
new
some killer,
episode just came out.
yeah, got some killer stuff in there for some fun folks. So make sure to check that out. But let's get into the nose here.
Yeah, it looks like a light lager. It's just got that really
Mm,
translucent, super duper 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 pale.
yeah,
And the aroma, I mean, it's obviously smoke forward, but it doesn't.
yeah,
A 3% beer can only handle so much smoke. It doesn't smell like burying your head in the campfire. It's a very pleasant,
right.
kind of rounded, light smoke character.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to the oak smoke treatment, because I think a lot of people are often introduced to, beechwood smoke in varying levels. And then it's kind of like, where do you
Mhm.
like smoke? And then, of course, you give them, the green Schlenkerla, the oak smoke Doppelbock, and you get into stuff like this, and you're like, oh, like there's like maybe some softer, wood and smoke treatments that can be given to beer like this, because this is not really in the like campfirey or anything like that. It's almost in the, I don't know, it's a good, I don't know, the descriptor for the smoke here is challenging.
Yeah, it's almost like you baked, a loaf of kind of country bread or white bread in a wood fired oven. It's
Yeah,
kind of like
that's a really
the
good.
vibe that I'm getting a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But there's also a little bit, there's still that bit of kind of black pepper in the background for me. The Jatek treatment definitely comes through a little bit, which I think with the smoke is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really nice. Transitioning into the palate, the smoke is just like really pleasant. I would put it, despite it being all oak smoked wheat malt, the smoke level is not absurd or intense. It is very, scale of 0 to 10. I think it's like maybe a 3 or a 4. Um, and there's the bitterness is nice too. It doesn't even
Yeah.
feel like 36 IBUs in
No.
a 3% beer. It feels a little bit more gentle than that, but that's probably has a lot to do with the Zaz treatment, right? Which
Hmm.
we know we did an episode on Czech Premium Pale Lager Pilsner Urquell and talked a lot about just that quintessential kind of like hard to put your finger on character of Zaz, which is just really such a pleasant bitterness, a quality bitterness that the Czechs call it. So that's here in spades. It's just a really pleasant bitterness.
Yeah, I completely agree. That would probably be the first question I would ask if I was with the brewers. Is what I was thinking, water treatment, and so that took me straight to, again, Pilsner or Kel, just on a different road. Seems very some similarities that are very good in this particular example, and dry on the palate, but also not thin. I think the wheat malt helps to give it a little bit of body.
Yeah, you wouldn't confuse it for a heavy beer by any means, but if you have a lot of super light lagers like German light beer, for example, those can feel watery, and kind of intentionally so, right? They're meant to be super super light. That's not a detraction from the beer. This, while super duper light, doesn't feel watery. There's just like a
No,
lot going on in a way that reminds you that you're drinking a beer that a lot of love and care went into, instead of some super light beers taste like malt flavored seltzer water, and
yeah,
that's not what this tastes like.
yeah, and I think the other fun thing too, a good reason to sit with smoke beers from a sensory standpoint is, if you do become somewhat acclimated to the smoke, you can start to get more of those, more of the undertones and kind of the background notes kind of coming through. And for me, it's especially the malt. It's starting to get kind of that, like you said, that really doughy, but it's kind of moved away from maybe the cooked part of it that you were talking about in the wood fire oven, and maybe more towards something that's like ready to be cooked. It's been risen.
Yep.
You're ready to give it maybe a second rise. You're forming them into balls, and then you're ready to pop them in the oven.
Yep. A little bit crackery too, just like a good um,
Yeah,
kind of
pale
lightly
cracker.
salted or herbed table cracker, water cracker, and I'm already getting used to the smoke. Like it's
Me
kind of
too.
hard to go back in and get more and more unique smoke character because like my body was like I'm ready, and I'm already one with the smoke. So that's could be dangerous a lot of the time. But could you imagine how many of these you could drink like on a hot
Oh
day
my
after
gosh.
getting used to the smoke character? Just
No,
like gallons of this, it would be no
I know.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder it's 6 packs of 12-ounce cans. I mean, they're just
Mine might not survive the episode. I'm gonna have to.
wouldn't be surprised.
So, well, this is certainly it was a really fun one to think about food pairing with,
I agree.
because we've like inverted a couple of characters that we usually use, right? So the
Hmm.
lightness of the body presents its own challenges. So I'm super curious what you came up with because I was trying to really think of kind of like light dishes that could hold up to a little bit of smoke. And my memory of this beer comports with drinking it right now. So I think I think that's a fun exercise where you typically pair smoked beers like smoked Märzen or smoked Doppelbock with, big meats and grilled stuff and kind of denser meals. This gives us an opportunity to incorporate smoke into some lighter meals, I think. So,
Yeah, I
you
agree.
got anything off the top of the head?
Well, I have Great Notion makes a Grodziska. It's called. I was trying to look it up. It's called Fenix, Feniks. When I was in Portland, Chris Cohen, the beer scholar, was picked up a 4 pack, and I was able to bring some home and do some pairings with it. And it's great with salmon. I just did salmon with like a simple tartar sauce. Tried it with both. It's definitely, the style I think can definitely stand up to a little bit more, bringing in like a sauce or something like that, but especially one that's, um, just going to be, tartar's just going to be very well acclimated to something like that. And it's just a bake on the salmon, not a ton of intense spices. This is definitely, like you said, I think you're starting with a base and then you are just building upon the flavors and the intensity that you can do until you kind of reach that limit. But I think the good thing is that there's just like 3 to 4 things that, even though this beer is maybe not as intense as others, it still just does all of those things quite well. Like it has
Yeah.
carbonation, it has a ton of carbonation, it has bitterness. So like even though it has low alcohol, it still has plenty of cutting power. The smoke is going to be a great contrast to so many different meals. Um, Another one I had was just deviled eggs. Just
Mm.
just that doughy breadiness thing. It makes me think of eggs and toast. Maybe a little bit of another thing in that realm with the salmon, almost like just sprinkling some panko. Get a little crust on top of a salmon. I think if you throw a little paprika in there with the smoke, I mean that's going to be something that everybody can resonate with. I think so. Yeah, that's kind of where I ended up, and then of course there's some cheeses. I thought maybe dressing up some burrata would be really fun. Again, you can play with some different seasonings. You can maybe play with some thyme or some brown butter sage or something. Maybe some crispy prosciutto or something like that. You can. That's one of the great things about burrata is you can just start there and it could just be great with the beer, and you can just keep adding all of these elements to make the cheese dish more and more complex and intense until you again kind of um, reach that limit. What did you come up with for kind of the savory or kind of the non dessert realm?
Yeah, I came up with a couple of things. One of them was salmon reminded me of this, but I think this would be a really nice pairing with sushi of a lot of different varieties too. And not like a smoked salmon sushi, but if you just did a salmon roll, which is such a delicate flavor, when it's presented as a sushi. That little bit of just kind of like toasty rice character. It's a little bit even more just gelatinous rice character.
Hmm.
That just clean salmon character. Not, you're not working with already smoked salmon or something like that. And the lightness of the beer is super refreshing, pairs well in that context, and doesn't overwhelm. The whole thing about Japanese sushi in particular is the how delicate it is, right?
Yeah.
It's not walloping you with flavor, particularly if you're not putting a ton of wasabi and soy sauce on it. If you're just sort of like having it as is, I think this would be a really awesome pairing with that, because that just kiss of smoke is going to be almost as if you smoked the salmon, and that could be really nice. So yeah, kind of in that salmon realm, I thought of sushi. The other thing, and I'm stealing this from you from a different episode. I don't remember which beer you used, but I think the cucumber tea sandwiches. I mean,
Oh yeah, because
this would be incredible with those.
that was with German Pills, and I mean 36
Yeah.
IBU crisp crusher. I mean you're in the same. Yeah, 100%
Yep.
agree.
And and in some super pale base malts, I guess you're not even really using a base malt, strictly speaking, for this beer, but there's some kind of ephemeral fruity character in some of them that's hard to draw out, or pilsner malt can kind of like lean towards some grape like character. Sometimes wheat can give you stuff that's reminiscent of lemon, things like that. And so doing the cucumber sandwich, you could do it either just the simply like the tea sandwich that's lightly buttered, and has got like a cute slice of cucumber, or even like a quick pickled cucumber on it, and just keep it that simple. Or go the cream cheese route and do a little cream cheese and cucumber sandwich. And cream cheese is a good canvas for a light beer with a lot of different character, much like burrata is. It tastes different than burrata, but I think that whole range of cheeses that's sort of just light and refreshing by itself is good for this kind of beer. And adjacent to that, but the same kind of idea, is you ever make, or your family make for get-togethers, like spinach artichoke pinwheels.
Yeah.
You mix up some cream cheese, or kind of like some ranch dressing style spices. You get dill, parsley, or just use the seasoning packet if you want to keep it super simple, and essentially make like a spinach artichoke dip, but then roll it up into tortillas
Yeah.
and cut them. And I think that would be nice with this too. It's almost like smoking the cream cheese in that
Oh,
sense. And that dill, parsley, ranch dressing style character is going to find a ton of affinity with the Zaz hops, and the smoke too. I think you can worry with some other smoked beers about like compounding herbs, spices, and phenolic smoke character, and it being a little bit too much. But you're not even like in the realm of too much in that situation. It's just a super pleasant, bright, kind of lemony dill, allium, parsley, and then the smoke, and just that seems like refreshing as all get out. So those were kind of the range of my savories.
yeah, that sounds great. I think that's where the fact that it's oak smoked is key, because some of these pairings, yeah, you're right. Just playing with any spices or anything, beechwood, you're just going to be pretty overwhelmed, I think. But the oak smoke is just so much, and it's just smoother on the palate too. It's smoother in the finish. It doesn't linger. So I think you're totally right. I think you can just kind of really go hard to play with the smoke and the spices, and really not worry about it too much. I think you're definitely right. It's a good point. All right, what about dessert? I got to go first on savory. I'll give you dessert.
Okay, I had my main idea was sorbet, and using like
Mm,
either doing like a trio of sorbets with a couple of different fresh fruit flavors. Like I really want to do honeydew and cantaloupe. Just kind of like
mm,
that bright melon flavor maybe would draw out a little bit of that slightly fruitier characteristic from the wheat malt, the smoked wheat malt. And you could either make that sorbet with mint, or just put some fresh mint on it too. And it's just like a super light, cooling, cold dessert. And I don't think that would be too heavy for this. That would just be that kiss of smoke, almost like you're having it outside at the end of the summer, and hopefully finding some fruit character to draw out of the malt. The other idea was also super light, I think. I hope this would work, but just meringues, just like French style meringues.
Yeah.
It's basically just whipped up, egg whites and some sugar. You can tamp down the sweetness a little bit if you want, and they're usually baked off, or you can even torch the top of them sometimes.
Hmm.
And so instead of torching the top of them, maybe just bake them and have them be the real simple, kind of lightly sweet meringue, kind of cookie meringue topping. And I think that this would be like the beer would be like torching the top of the meringue. You could even maybe go so far as do like lemon meringue or lemon meringue pie. Once you start incorporating a lot of custardy type character and a lot of sugar and the graham, I don't know if that would be too big or not. So
Mm.
I'm confident that the meringue by itself would be a nice simple pairing, hopefully. And maybe if the beer is intense enough for you, you could you could ratchet it up to lemon meringue pie, lemon meringue tart, a lemon custard with meringue on it, forgo the crust. A lot of stuff kind of in that realm is what I was thinking. How about you?
I was pretty quickly in scone territory. We've been having chocolate scones for breakfast, and basically when I have smoked beer, like I almost always have chocolate now. It's just
Mm,
it's so good with it's just so good with chocolate, and to me, it just brings back so many fond memories of being by the campfire. It gives us the s'mores kind of impression. The scone has the kind of crispy outer layer, but also kind of that really sort of grainy, somewhat doughy, especially if they're kind of warm and it's a little soft. As opposed to having a scone that's a little bit more room temperature and kind of having that almost, I would say, kind of like sand, almost like texture, when it comes apart.
yeah, even the soft ones, right, are kind of dry, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term, and they beg to have coffee, or in this case, Grodziskie. Like that could kind of soften and meld everything together. A lot of people ask when you make a food and beer pairing, do you take a sip of the beer and then eat the food? Do you do them both together? Do you eat the food and then just rinse your palate with the beer? And you should experiment with all of those. But that kind of like scone texture with a little sip of this beer to help kind of grease the wheels, so to speak, I think would be really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think you can just play with. I think I picked scone because I think it's just such a great bridge base for the beer, just the malt character of the scone, and then you can just at that point you can play with tons of stuff. You can play with maple. I think maple would be ridiculous
Yeah,
with
maybe
that. Like,
sprinkle a little bit of sea salt on
oh
there.
my gosh, yeah, sea salt. You could do a brown butter topping. I mean, you can just there's. I mean, smoke. Do you have smoked brown butter? I mean, come on. That just sounds like something I'm gonna need to bake. So I
You're like,
just
it sounds like something that I will be doing in
well,
short order.
yeah. Oh well. Add that to the list. Yeah. I mean, I hope one thing folks get out of this is I think we turn to intense beers a lot. I think for food pairing. But these styles that even are really low alcohol, kind of low color, those aren't those aren't even though it kind of like we said looks like a light lager. There's a lot of cases here that we've gone through where it is nothing like it. And food pairing is definitely one. So hopefully, maybe we've shed a little bit of light on that, and maybe you'll order the Euro Grodziska next time you see one on the list, and maybe you'll try it with pizza or something fun. So
Yeah, absolutely. And keep your eyes out for them. Any brewery near you that does a lot of kind of like old world European styles might give this a spin every once in a while. And I like to reward that risk taking with drinking a lot of it
yeah,
because we don't get to all that often. So if you see it, buy it, and even if you don't like it, at least you got to try it.
yep, absolutely. Okay, for next week, I know, yeah, it's it's
This
getting
is how
low.
much I have left. This is a one Grodziskie episode, and we were talking the whole time.
Yeah,
If we were just sitting here, it would have been like a 3 or 4 Grodziskie episode.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, maybe if we were live with questions from folks, that would be
Yeah,
we might have needed to ask to send more, ask on the deep to send more. Um, well, it's for next week. We've had to acknowledge that it's the season, and so we're going to pumpkin beer. So Dogfish had pumpkin ale. So we're getting it. It's pretty easy. It's I've found it at a couple of places already, but I know you snagged some, and I'll be picking that up from you next time I see you. And actually, I lied. That's not next week. No, I forgot.
Aha.
No. Next week is Fresh Hop. It's that
Yep.
season. It's Fresh Hop season, and Chris has got a Radiant Fresh Hop beer. I will also be picking that one up. And then the week after that is pumpkin ale. So we got the
Yeah, so
next
we're
two
teed
weeks
up
lined up.
for two really nice seasonal beers. So,
Yeah. So
they
pick
should
up a
be,
local.
yeah, fresh local interpretations near you. You
Yeah.
probably can't get necessarily the ones that we're going to work on. Well, the Radiant Fresh Hop, just get,
Yeah.
in the spirit of the episode, get any Fresh Hop beer. We'll be working with one that's all strata hops, but the Dogfish Head Pumpkin Ale the next week is what we're going to work on, and you can get a local one, or that one's available a lot of places unless it's sold out already. So grab one in anticipation and dine with us in pumpkin beer in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun one. Well, cheers, everybody. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Huge thank you to everybody who, is subscribing. Small but mighty. Uh, cheers, and we will see you next time.
Send more Grodziskie.